In this episode of the IT Experts podcast, we're joined by Danny Boyle. We're going to help you sell more by doing less. Welcome to the IT Experts podcast, the only podcast to help MSPs scale to 1 million, and if already there, get to 5 and go faster. At the end of the day, isn't it all about building a business that works for you rather than you for it? I hope you enjoy the show. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome to the IT Experts podcast, and super excited today because not only do we have a podcast, but we have a book as well. And we're joined by Danny Boyle. And if you don't know who Danny Boyle is, then you must have been living under a rock. He's an MSP and IT channel sales expert. Welcome to the show, Danny. How are you doing today?
Oh, cheers, Ian. Really well, thank you. Thanks for having me on. It does mean a lot.
No problem whatsoever. Well, look, we're going to offer an absolute bucket load of value to the listeners today. We're going to be talking about the principles of your new book. No shameless plugs in this podcast. Absolutely straight on the nose there. Sell more by doing less. An MSP and IT specialist guide to better sales calls, and we're going to be diving into that today to help you nurture the language, help you understand the importance of language, the process, and kind of perfecting up your sales proposals as well. So really excited, an absolute bucket load of information we've got coming through. But before we get going, Danny, do you want to just explain to everybody who you are, what you do, and who you help?
Yeah, of course. So I've been in the industry now for about 9 or 10 years, working specifically and predominantly with MSPs. I first started out in retail for 5 years, becoming one of the youngest assistant managers to a very well-known optician chain, where obviously you learn about the devil in the detail when it comes to the face-to-face selling. Then I transitioned onto the telecoms world, which is it's quite a scary moment because you can imagine call center environment is very, very peculiar, but very stressful at all. And I just found myself naturally helping others, especially becoming a coach and a manager. And when I stepped into the world of MSPs, I worked for a distributor, one of the well-known ones, which soon got acquired to become QBS. And it was there that I realized a lot of MSPs also sometimes aren't aware of little things that they can do and the processes that they can follow to help them better not just their revenue but also their conversion rate. And I've been working with MSPs for several years since then, and now representing one of the biggest and most reputable RMMs, and I look after the larger side of the UK audience.
Brilliant stuff. We've had a couple of chats, Danny, before today's show, but just I love the story that you've got behind this. Why was this? Why did you write this book? What was the kind of the why behind it? What was the big thing for you?
It was all to do with COVID, like everything else in this day and age at the moment. A lot of hobbies and a lot of activities all started at that time. But during the time when Boris obviously wouldn't allow us out for an hour a day and all the neighbours were stitching on each other for exercising for a little bit too long, I found myself in a little bit of a hole where I just was completely lost and a little bit down in the dumps. Definitely, I don't mind talking about my mental health. I hit rock bottom. And because of my coaching and mentoring background that I've had, not just in the MSP world, but also in retail and in a call center environment, I actively just thought I would start writing things down. Just to help the distraction, and I never actually thought it would go anywhere. But I've always had something in the back of my mind where I've wanted to call something my own, to say, I've done that, and I've toiled with different ideas over the years, but this was the first time that I thought I was in control of the whole process. And working with MSPs, there's so many different little details that they can do and they can say over the phone that have a massive outcome the delivery. So that was the whole momentum behind. Yeah, absolutely. I really enjoyed it, and it took 2 years of writing, but I'm so glad I did.
Excellent. What do you think MSPs find it so hard, this whole sales thing? Because it's quite a scary thing for most MSPs from a technical point of view, but doing sales is completely alien, isn't it? But what's your view on why it's one of these taboo subjects?
I think it's a lack of understanding, and also to do with the personality behind the individual who's trying to promote it. From my experience, what I've noticed is obviously technical people are more interested in things. And that means that they're more inclined to learn about the features and the benefits of why this logically makes sense. However, I like to take it back a step. Obviously, the person behind it is there's an emotional connection as well. And to give you a bit of an idea, and I always use this example with a lot of my partners and customers that I work with, we've all got a piece of gym equipment lying around in a shed somewhere that we knew logically it was a good deal and a perfect logical reason as to why we should be buying it, but our emotional connection wasn't there. And what I've noticed over the years working with partners is sometimes they're so tied up on the things as to why it matters that they mislead, or not mislead, that's a really bad word to say, but they fail to understand that there's an emotional reason as to what is triggering that customer to say yes as well. And there is a disconnect. And so what I found and worked with other partners is trying to tie the two together to make it a perfect logical and emotional decision.
And it's understanding their pain points and trying to work out what the real business outcomes of what they're going to fix is one of the hardest things, isn't it, for MSPs?
Oh, absolutely. It's a process, just like everything else in life. If you're willing to try and you're willing to prepare to fail, then you are going to get better and better and better. And what I've noticed, a lot of MSPs kind of fell into the business where it just became a thing. And so sales wasn't really part of their arsenal at the time. So a lot of times, if they're just aware of what the structure is and how they can easily navigate through that process from cradle to grave, it just makes such a big difference. And yeah, you're right, the pain point is one of the biggest issues. Is it the financial side that is causing them pain? Is it the support? Is it the productivity? Or is it the process? So my work and what I've tried to focus on is just helping them to highlight it a little bit better.
And how the hell to understand how the whole thing sticks together is even more complicated, isn't it? From the MSPs as well. Right, Danny, let's talk about, and everyone's talks about the standard sales process, but in your point, I do love the angle that you're coming in on this. I think it's really relevant, and we're always talking and screaming at our clients and telling them to stop selling the tech. In actual fact, I've just got off the phone with some guy, just talking to him a minute ago, and his website's all talking about his solutions and his packages and his pricing, when in actual fact it should be all about the outcomes and what's in it for me, not what's in it for you, sort of thing, which is a really difficult thing to do. So there's always some refinement, and when you think you've finished doing your website and your copy, guess what? You'll always have a little tweak and find a little bit more. But what's your view? What's your take on the simplicity or the structure of a sales process that MSPs, post-pandemic, really should be considering and understanding?
It's so critical to the journey. It really is. Just being aware of the usual steps in every single part of the process is paramount to understanding the ins and outs of where a customer is specifically up to. Obviously, it's one side of the journey is to drive the lead generation in, which is obviously to bring the income. But I like to step back a little bit and highlight that if a customer's only making the most of 50% of their customer base at the moment, then all they're inevitably going to do is to make 50% of any new income that comes as well. Yeah. And this is one of the reasons why I like to dissect it. So when I was writing the book, I'm well aware that there's varying levels of experiences. So I wanted it to be a quick pick up and go book where if you want to highlight one particular highlight, which is to do with the type of buyers that we obviously recognize, the qualifying of a call, the pain points as to what's causing anybody any particular issue, or the influential language that people uses, that is all part of that process. And that's all it is. If you just strip it back, it's a skeleton of point A, point B, point C, and point D, and just knowing what they are has helped me no end.
Brilliant. What are those steps that you can share with the guys today?
Yeah, so first of all, and especially it's definitely recommended as part of your marketing, any type of marketing strategy that you're going to be doing or campaigns, is just to understand the buyer persona. This is quite a common theme specifically, and it's come from the American side of the world, where just understanding who your audience is, what type of age group they are, what type of hobbies they might follow, what type of interests and dislikes they might have. Everybody to one degree or another, whether you like it or not, can be categorized. And if you can understand that type of audience, then it makes a big difference in the type of messaging that you're going to be sending out and obviously persuading them with. Then you go into the type of buyers, into how urgent this specifically is, and then all the qualifying lead stages, all the things that people want to know. One of the things that I follow quite well is what's called BANCOUT. It's basically an acronym of the 7 stages of the information that you should be extracting as part of your conversations with the customer. So the B stands for budget, i.e. what is it that they wanted to buy. The A stands for authority, and that's quite key this modern day and age, because a lot of companies have multiple decision makers and committees now, and that's more than ever before. So understanding the actual journey behind that is important. The N is for the need, obviously the pain point. The C is for the competition, who you're up against. Usually 9 times out of 10, the more people that they're comparing you against means the slower the sales cycle. The O is for the opportunity size, i.e. how many of this, how much of that. The U is for unique. This person has been driven towards you for a particular type of reason. What is that? And highlighting it and obviously emphasizing the importance of that specific figure. And the T is timeline. When is it that they're looking to buy? And we go through all of those stages and the influential language that you can say over the phone during your proposal and your closing, which can help to make that key difference.
Love it. I love an acronym. I love a model. I love any way you can hang it on, because it's just really simple, isn't it? Just to kind of explain it, and to have that hanger, you can then drive your content from that. And whenever anybody comes towards you, whether you're an MSP or a sales coach, or how can you help me? Oh, we put you through this model. This is how does that work then? Oh, okay, right. So let's understand how that works, and then you resonate, and then you build that kind of trust, which is all important. Let's talk a bit about persuasive language. Now, I don't know, have you ever seen or heard any of Jordan Belforth's sales process?
Yeah, I've read it. And he's a key reference as well in a lot of the stages in my book, because he's someone who's quite credible to me. Definitely a little bit of a virtual mentor, just to understand and simplify the journey. And I also was incredibly influenced by how he writes his book, the way of the wolf, because he writes exactly how he sounds, and that's exactly the type of interpretation that I wanted to give to my audience.
Yeah. And I did some. I watched some of his videos. Was it his straight line selling system? Wasn't it? Something
that's
like
the one.
And I'm not going to be controversial right now, but some of it, I watched it and I thought, okay, I get what you're saying, but by God, that just does not feel authentic. It just feels like you're just trying to scrape this person and rip the money off them. And it didn't really, some of it kind of didn't really align with the values. It was like, as long as there's a pulse, there was a sale sort of thing. As long as they're not dead, I'm going in for it, And if they are going to die, if I can get them to sign the paperwork before they croak it, then that's going to be a really great place to be. So persuasive language in that manner, I think the way he delivers it is interesting because of his cheeky kind of chappy way, that he kind of is. But I think putting this into the IT space, I think it'll frighten the bloody life out of most guys if you sort of say that you're going to go in and ask people for the contract and you want to be a little bit more forwards and a little bit more, put a bit more pressure on, and high pressure sales, back in the day, the whole, God, I can't even flipping say the word, double glazing salesman and all of those kind of guys and timeshares and all of that. It gives sales a really bad name, doesn't it? But, persuasive quality language is some of the things that you talk about in the book, isn't it? What does that mean for the MSP? Because it's all very well and good to do a sales course, but How do they feel comfortable? You've got to feel comfortable if you're going to build rapport with someone, haven't you, when you're selling something to them and you're providing them a service? How do you kind of help them overcome that?
Yeah, of course you have. And yeah, to use Jordan again as a reference, so one of the things that he always says and talks on about is that any cycle, when it comes to sales, you are expected to come up against at least 7 or 8 different objections along the way. And so it's how you use your smart repetition to obviously persuade the customers back on your side. And this all connects to the fact that it could be a logical connection if it's a technical issue as to why the customer's not going ahead, or it could be an emotional connection if there's other priorities which are taking more of a precedence at that time. So one thing that I always love to try and influence a lot of my partners to work towards is a smart repetition, and we do it at home all the time. And one of the things that I always like to connect is that relationship between your home life and your home conversations in comparison to your work life. And to give you a bit of an example, there's always been a time at some point, which everybody can remember, where you're trying to persuade your best mate or your partner to go for a takeaway or a beer. And straight away, you'll get a no. And so you just start thinking of all the different ways that you can ask the same sentence. Oh, man. And you've not that line, mate. So
yeah, fair enough. That's a top trump match then. Right, carry on.
Yeah, but absolutely. And so we're just naturally drawn where if the conversation doesn't quite go into the same direction that we want it to be leading towards, we'll try different ways and try different tactics to basically repeat the same phrase in different strategies. And so you might just try being slightly different. And that's just part of the sales process. When an objection comes, or you're chasing an order, or you're chasing a quote, or looking for a PO, there's lots of different ways that we can reach out to our audience to see if it ties together. And another real life example, obviously, television adverts are horrendous. We all know, but luckily, they're nowhere near as relevant as they were 20, 30 years ago when we only had five channels to choose from. But we all know the SCS and DFS adverts. When will that sale ever end? There was a 34-second advert by SCS. I need to say this, other like chair shops and carpet shops are available. I feel like that's kind of the going rate now. But during that 34-second advert, they made all of the audience aware in 14 different ways to buy something, or that there's something available to them. And that, in a nutshell, is the sales process, but on a much longer time frame. So along the way, with all of your ins and your outs, your rapport is built on the type of questions that you ask, the type of conversations that you get into, the personal touches, and just being aware of what type of responses you're getting from the other end.
What's some of the common mistakes that MSPs make when they're having these conversations, and how could they become a bit more persuasive without feeling awkward?
I would say there's two. The big one is not writing things down. You'll be I know it sounds so simple, but you'll be very surprised as to how much a person is willing to go into a full conversation for 20 or 30 minutes to extract all the information that they can, only to leave it by the wayside by not retaining that information for the next call.
Interesting, yeah.
Because it's so critical. If you understand what's causing them pain, what type of amount that they're looking to buy, the timeline that they're working together, all you're doing is misleading your own pipeline as to when you're expecting that to come in. And then the second thing is the difference between open questions and closing questions. Obviously, we know the difference. A yes or a no compared to an open-ended question is obviously the winner, but try and be more persuasive. So one of the examples I like to use is some of my partners I'm working with at the moment are trying to drive discovery calls, quarterly check-ins, like biannual check-ins, whatever you want to call it, and whatever time frame that's optional to you. But I have a lot of partners where they started that momentum by asking, would they like one? And
no, thank you. No,
exactly.
No.
We've all got 100 things going on in that given day, that anything that is higher of a priority of that, especially if they know there's a sales angle attached to it, they're going to get shot down straight away, or they're going to say, send me an email instead. So what I like to do is I like to work with my partners to get them to be more persuasive, to say, look, what day is best for you? And when you say that, all of a sudden, you've given the customer 5 options. There is a 6th one there, which is no, but it's hidden away. And all 5 options to the customer lead you to getting what you're after. So it's a much easier transition to be persuasive. You're already an expert in your field. All of the partners are. They know so much. So why not try and invest that into the type of language that you can use as well?
And we had exactly the same conversation this week in one of our calls with the clients where they were asking for a referral, and I was just waiting for it, and he said the question, and it was like, do you know anyone who you could refer to me? And no. But if you ask the question, who do you know who needs what we do? It's a completely different conversation. And it's, I think the term persuasive language can be quite scary for many MSPs. But I think I would probably term it a bit more, deliberate and purposeful language, on what you're trying to do. Because, at the end of the day, there's no point trying to sell something to someone that they don't need and you can't fix and you can't help them with. So you got to start from the beginning of, if you are passionate enough all the time that you know that you can help and serve this person, then yes, it is your duty to go as far as you can, and not as hard as you can, but as far as you can, to help persuade, educate, build that rapport so that they can see the benefit of working with you, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole duty of the company is built on reputation of customer experience. If anybody wasn't good at the job, they wouldn't be there for a long time. And especially in the MSP, that's enhanced just because everything's built on being that one-stop shop for everything and that point of contact and the expert. And I read a fact a little while ago when I was doing a little bit of research on the book. And if you have a positive experience, let's say you go for a restaurant, when you get back, you're only likely to tell 2 or 3 others. If you have a negative experience, that's heightened to 12 to 15 people. And that's why it's so key in the information that you're talking to and just being aware of the cycle. It can make such a big difference, and you'd be very astounded as to all the tiny things that you can just change in your language that have the huge impacts. And we all know it. We all have been there. We've been in obviously an argument with the wife, and as soon as you leave the room, all we ever think about for the rest of the night is what we could have said. Oh, that would have been amazing if I said that.
How can I
how
can I get a bottle of wine quicker?
And we're all built to have that type of mind frame where we know if it's absolutely horrendous, we won't do it again. Yeah. Like stand on Lego because the kids have left a piece out. Just instantly our brain goes, I'm not doing that again. And when you actually just build that into the sales process and just knowing what the start and the finish is and all the little tiny like nuances and peaks and troughs which are built in between, it all helps.
Yeah, of course it does.
It really does.
Of course it does. Let's talk about the final piece of the puzzle. We've gone through this whole sales process. Your marketing's right, and someone's clicked on something. They've come in. You're working through your sales pattern, their solutions, and matching the services and all of that good stuff. But what's some of your top tips to help MSPs to perfect that proposal so that we can nail the final stage?
Yeah, first one is understanding again, just to do with the logic and the emotion. A lot of people obviously just tie one and automatically just think now it's a complete dead end. Just understanding the end user as to specifically what they're trying to say, emphasizing with your client, ask the open questions that you need to, and drive the objections. Expect not just one, but 5 or 6. And this is where your smart repetition can come in, just checking in with customers with a different message, but obviously with the same underlying reason can have that huge impact, and repeating the message back to them as well. One thing that I always like to drive, sorry, I know I've said one thing a lot, but you know what I mean.
And then you talk about many. So I'm glad this is some sort of like mathematical thing, but I'm not picking up on that because I don't do words or numbers either. That's Stuart's job.
Yeah, absolutely. No, but when it comes to the message, it's all about keeping everything as simplistic as possible. If you ever get too confusing, or if the message ever becomes too complex, we're now driven, because of the amount of cold calls that we've been facing over the last 20 years, to automatically go, oh, I ain't got time, send me an email. And that's one of the biggest no-nos possible. So what I like to do is to drive the call first, then the email afterwards. And the reason being is because depending on how you're feeling at that given moment, you can read text in a completely different language and completely different mind frame. And there's a famous saying amongst linguists, and it's called "I never said she stole my money." And it's an example because you can emphasize just one of the words of that 7-letter phrase, and it will change the whole meaning of the sentence in 7 different ways.
Yeah.
And because the fear of a lot of MSPs of failure is sometimes quite high, especially on the phone because it's not their forte, they will often opt towards that email because it's simpler and it's easy to take the no. So what I like to do is to reverse it, and I use emails to confirm what I've just said to make sure I'm fully transparent.
Yeah, make sure you've got all the details down and everything like that. Brilliant.
Yeah, we still live in a world where people buy from people. You still hear it every day, and when we go to events, there is still a need for that human connection. We're not completely disconnected just yet. There's still a lot of verdict on whether that will go completely offline, but I don't think it will do for a long time because we still need that human interaction to build the rapport, build a relationship, knowing someone's at the other end. And that's exactly the same type of situation that MSPs have with their end users as well.
Yeah, it's quite interesting what you're just saying there about all of those different elements and that language. We were working with one of our clients, and he had literally been nailing his sales. And when we looked at what he'd done, it was all around that resonating language in that sales deck. Towards the end of that proposal, towards the end, it kind of worked from the back end all the way through to the front end of his sales process. But because he was resonating, because he was using the right questioning, the right language, the right closing language, and all of that, it's kind of exactly what you said. He was adding. He actually texted me one afternoon and said, "Is there such a thing as discovery call fatigue by having too many discovery calls?" So it absolutely works. And the opportunity here is you get the emotion right. Build those business outcomes, get to the pain point, match your language with them, and be deliberate as you're going through that. It's really, really powerful, isn't it? I think just a podcast that might complement this, or I know will complement this actually, is episode 119, where we talked with Brian Gillette from over across the pond in the United States about how to sell more confidently and feel good about it. He touched a little bit on the language, not as much as we have today. That would be certainly a good listen for you. We'll put all the links to that in the show notes as well. Danny, before we wrap up, and you can tell people how to get hold of you and get hold of the book, talk to me about your principle of the first 15 seconds and why is that so powerful?
It's something, again, that I've learned from Jordan. He obviously had to do one hell of a lot of cold calls in his day. Likewise, as we were discussing, the tactics back then were a little bit different than they are now. So it's a little bit warmer. So I've done this as an adaptation and expanded it into 15 seconds. So the 3 rules still apply. So Jordan obviously mentions that every single person at the start of a call, because first impressions are so strong, that you need to be recognized as an expert in your field, enthusiastic, and as sharp as a tack. Obviously, that's an American theme. But what I like to do is expand it a little bit just to make sure that you're as relatable as possible and that you're human. Don't forget, a lot of these guys and a lot of companies, they're receiving up to 70 to 100 different cold calls every month from different account managers of varying different industries. So I do everything I can to be slightly different. And one thing I always like to talk about is the fact that there is always a how are you section at the start of every single conversation. And we've been doing it for years at home and with friends and family, that you instantly just want to start the conversation in the right mode. So during that situation, if you ask, I'll ask, how are you? And then obviously it's returned back to me. I will tell them a story about something so innocent about my life that they can instantly connect to, that makes me stand out. And it is very, very simple. It's all true, but it's things like, oh, the dog next door kept me awake at night. Or I put the wrong bin out. I ran out of coffee this morning, so I had to nip to the shop. And I know it sounds so innocently pointless, but it immediately can create a very, very nice connection. And to give you a really nice example, hairdressers have been doing this for years. They're all built on getting the tip because of their revenue and their salaries relatively on the low end. A lot of their living comes off the tips that they receive. So they're naturally built to have 9 or 10 different conversation starters to keep the colleague or to keep the potential punter or end user at ease with their conversation to make it feel as less awkward as possible. And so I've kind of manipulated that technique, thrown it into the sales calls that I have. And so every single time that I'm speaking to customers, I'll tell them a little story. And again, it's all true. It's all transparent. I'm not misleading anybody. I'm not going to swear, but I'm not BSing anybody. But it just instantly allows the end user to go, okay, this guy's normal. I can tell that just because of the first 15 seconds. He's an expert straight away. He's confident and enthusiastic. He is sharp because he's very, very quick, but also he's given me a story that I can easily relate to.
Brilliant stuff. Absolutely love that. And it's so important. And once you build this into your own system and you kind of use a lot of the methodologies that are in the book, it's just going to help you out massively. How do people get in contact with you, Danny, if they want to continue the conversation?
Absolutely. There's 2 different ways. The first one is you can email me at danny@dannyboyle.uk. It's important to note there's no .co.uk in that one because there's a more famous Danny Boyle, unfortunately, around the world in the UK. Alternatively, you can send me a direct message on LinkedIn or contact me via the company I work for, which is called Ninja One. And again, my email is danny.boyle@ninja1.com.
Brilliant stuff. Just before we shoot off, if you want to use these tactics in your sales and marketing, then it would be remiss of me not to mention to you that we have recently just been held a sales and marketing masterclass that we have a recording for. It's going to help you catapult your sales and marketing performance, and using the tactics that Danny's been talking about today is going to just improve those conversion rates no end, and also help you with your account management as well as your existing clients as well. I'll drop a link in the show notes here. It's as I say, it's a recording. It's only about 30 minutes, 35 minutes long, but it runs through the whole sales and marketing client system that we use actually with our clients. So go and check that out as well. Danny, absolutely amazing to talk to you again. Lovely to see the book feature so much on LinkedIn, and obviously thank you for our copy as well. It's absolutely brilliant. I wish you all the success with that, with your work that you're doing with the MSPs and with everything else you've got going on, because you're a busy guy. So that's it from us today, guys. Thanks again, Danny. Look forward to seeing you soon, mate.
Thanks, Ian. Take it easy.
Cheers. So I hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, I'd love it if you could leave a rating and review on your favourite podcast platform. If you want to learn more about how to take your MSP to $1 million, or if you're already there, go faster, then come and join Stuart Warwick and myself in the Scale with Confidence Facebook group. The link is in the show notes. You go and enjoy the rest of your day, and I look forward to connecting with you soon.